I was on the set making this film, and a woman walked over to me. I had no idea who she was, and she whispered in my ear. She said, "God's not done with you yet." And I just looked at her, and she repeated it, and I thought, well, you know what? Maybe she's right.
Hello and welcome to the March or Die show today. Again, very glad to have you joining me. This is the show where every single week we do our best to give you the perspectives and principles you need to move forward. When your world is falling apart, we're going to talk about that a little bit. When your world is falling apart, you need to understand you only have two choices. Will you stay where you are and die, or will you march? That's what this show is all about. I'm very excited to share the conversation you are about to hear with my guest. My guest today is Scott Baio. If you're not familiar with Scott Baio, apparently you've not watched television in the last many years. He's been a part of just about everything. And I go back in my mind to watching episodes of Happy Days. And then he was, Charles in Charge. That was his show, a number of other shows. And he's had a prolific career in entertainment since he was very young. But now is in a movie that is being released in just a couple of weeks. The movie is God's Not Dead, In God We Trust. It's the latest installment of the God's Not Dead series of films. And again, if you haven't watched those, you need to go and check those out. But the new one coming out is, I'll say, political in that it is attempting to, in the film, convey the truth, the reality, that if people of faith do not stand up and use their voices, if they don't vote, if they don't get involved in what's happening, then we're going to lose the freedoms that we enjoy as Americans. Politics, we talk about politics and not being political, and we think it's something we need to stay away from. But we have to understand, we have to realize that politics are important to whether or not we get to worship God as we see fit and go to church and join in communities that matter to us. The freedom that we enjoy as Americans will only be preserved as people, men and women like you and me, stand up and use our voice. And that's what this film is about. Again, a little bit different for this show, for the March or Die show. But I'll tell you, when I had the opportunity to have this conversation about the movie, talking to Scott Baio, which is an honor for me. But having this opportunity, it is the March or Die message. It really is attempting to convey that at moments like the one we're in politically, we only have two choices as Christians. We have two choices as people of faith, as those that want to see our country move forward and not continue to get pulled into something that looks nothing like the country we grew up in. We only have two choices. We can stay where we are and die. We can just let it happen around us and then someday talk about the freedom we used to have and the opportunities we used to have. Or we can march. We can put one foot in front of the other, let our voices be heard, vote, speak out, stand up, and get behind those who have a vision for America that most closely aligns to ours. And so I was happy to have the opportunity to talk about this film, and very excited for the interview you are about to hear with my guest, Scott Baio. Scott, welcome to the show, man. Thank you so much for being on. It's an honor.
Thank you. Oh, my honor, Jeremy. Thank you very much.
And we're talking about something that's super important. This film that you're involved in now and that is coming out in just a couple of weeks, God's Not Dead, In God We Trust, is such an important and very, very timely film for right now. Can you talk about that a little bit? We've got a lot to talk about, but can you just talk about the film generally and what people can expect from it?
Well, first of all, it's a very good film. And by the way, it has a pretty powerful, pretty powerful message in it. Yeah. It's basically a Mr. Smith Goes to Washington type of film story. And, David A.R. White, who created the God's Not Dead series of films, plays Pastor Dave. And he just, not wanting to, gets involved in running for Congress. And that's basically what the movie's about. And the story, and I play the campaign manager of his adversary. So I'm not a nice guy, but the gist of the film really is I didn't know this, but I learned this making the film that 40 million Christians don't vote.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for whatever reason, and I don't know what their reason is.
Yeah.
If they're mad at something or they don't like something or they don't like somebody, well, if you're going to let your country disappear because you're mad at something or you don't think, listen, but they don't, I think Christians don't want to get involved in politics, but unfortunately where we are we are where we are.
Yeah.
Politics is in every single aspect of our life, unfortunately. You can't watch a game. You can't hear a song.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. So you're going to have to deal with that. And we're going to have to get out and vote and affect change. That's basically the movie.
What's crazy about what you just said is Christians do, by and large, often say, I don't want to get involved in politics. I'm beyond it or above it or something. I consider myself very conservative, which mostly means I just want to be left alone, right? Well, the problem with that is there's a group of people who want to take away our freedom to worship and our freedom to assemble and all of these things that we hold very important. So you can't say, I just want to stay away from it. You have to get involved. And when I watched the trailer and then the screener for this film, it really struck me that, it's kind of the story of a pastor who kind of said the same thing, right? Like, I'm a pastor. I don't necessarily want to get involved in this. But the motivation is we lose our freedom if we don't get involved and use our voice. And that's such an important message for people.
Well, you said something, and the difference between conservatives and liberals is, you're right. Conservatives just want to go live their lives.
Yeah.
I just want to go live my life.
Yeah.
I want to be left alone. I don't want to hear. I don't want to be force-fed anything. I want to go live my life. The other side is in a constant attack on everything American, in my opinion.
Right.
And because in our aloneness, we want to be left alone, we're missing it. It's right in front of us. And it's being taken away. It's being chipped away at every day. I describe it like this. It's conservatives or Christians have a bunch of sand in their hands, and the sand is all the things that we care about, whatever they might be.
Right.
And liberals come by and just smack your hand, and more sand leaves.
Yeah.
And more sand leaves, and that's happening constantly. So again, if it's out of your comfort zone, well, how uncomfortable are you going to be when God is taken out of everything?
Right.
When the country that we grew up in is changed forever, and there's no getting it back. Once it's become whatever the other side wants it to be, and I don't even know what they want it to be.
Yeah.
Whenever it gets to that point, it's done.
Right. We're living at a time, and obviously this movie's been in production for a long time, but even just watching the conventions and we're in this season of election, right? So it's just crazy, the partisanship and then the frustration from normal people, a lack of hope. We're being told at the same time that a message of faith and a message of God and kind of going back to our founding as a nation, that's not a popular message anymore. People don't want to talk about faith. People don't want to talk about God. Why do you feel like the faith message, the hope message, God is the foundation, that message, why is that something that resonates with people right now with as much frustration and confusion as there is? Because
it's just frustration and confusion. Government wants to act as God.
Yeah.
And I think people are hopefully waking up to the fact that it's being eliminated. I'm going to go sideways here for a minute. I grew up in America.
Right.
And I don't live in America anymore, I feel like.
Yeah.
And that bothers me.
Yeah.
And I have a daughter that's going to inherit this country when I'm gone. And I don't want this for her. And I don't want to push, and Jeremy, I don't want to push anything on anybody.
Yeah, right.
I don't. Just look, don't push your stuff on me. Right. I don't have, right. I'm a conservative guy. I'm very conservative, but I will hang out with anyone.
Yeah.
And I've been in show business my whole life. People will call me homophobic. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Right.
And it's it's just label, and they've been labeling and labeling and hammering and hammering. So I just want to be an American. And if you're trans, if you're black, purple, art, whatever you are, if you're a good human being, I'm cool.
Yeah. And that's really fundamentally, that's what being an American is about, right? It's about having the freedom to be who you are. And to twist that and say, well, if you're different than me, it's because you don't like me or you hate me or something is absurd.
Yeah. I don't think that way, but don't hate me.
Right.
Because, and they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of what I believe or whom I would like to vote for.
Right. Right.
I'm a Trump guy. And people, why would you vote for him?
Yeah.
Why, whatever. And I say, look, let me make this simple for you. You have two doctors. You go to your one doctor and he's a great guy, great bedside manner, wonderful human being, a lovely doctor, lovely person. But when you walk out, you just don't feel any better.
That's right.
And then you get another doctor who's just loud and brash and rude and whatever, and he just speaks off the cuff. But when you leave his office, I'm feeling pretty good.
Right.
Which doctor would you go to?
Right.
And maybe I'm crazy.
You're the crazy one. You want the doctor that knows what he's doing instead of the one that makes you feel good. And that's our problem. I think we're so wrapped up in, emotions and emotionalism and how people make us feel.
Emotion.
We've got to get back to that place. This is for people that have followed your career, and I've seen you in, I think, just about everything you've been in. I'm sure I missed something, but I love.
You must have a lonely life, Jeremy. But
I love sitcoms, and I love sitcoms that kind of reflect Americana, right? Which is a lot of what you've done. Happy Days, one of my favorites. Still watch it. Charles in Charge. Kind of these stories that you developed over time. This movie would, at least to me, it seems like a departure from what you have historically been a part of. Is that an intentional thing? Is it now's the time for me to go and do something like this? Because I can't imagine you can do a film like this and not get some blowback from doing it.
More blowback than I've been getting?
So maybe that's been part of your story anyhow up to this point.
You look back over your life and you realize the work that you've done. And sometimes it's not even, it just sort of happens. I just went from one show to another, and I thought they were good shows and movies and directed, and then did another series and another series. I think I've had, 7 or 8 of them. And then I just kind of laid low for different reasons. And David A.R. White, who produces this film and is the star in it, our children went to the same school, and we started having a conversation and blah, blah, blah. And he offered me this movie a couple of years ago during COVID called Courting Mom and Dad, which was a very good faith-based film. And then he calls me, he says, "Hey, I got this God's Not Dead. Would you want to do it?" And I read the script, and I said, I guess this is where I'm supposed to go now. Right? And I read it and liked it. And I said, well, let's go. Let's see what happens with this. So, Jeremy, there's not that much. Sometimes there's not a lot of thought that goes into things. You
right.
And I don't mean that in a you just read it. Oh, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then as you get involved, and I was on the set making this film, and a woman walked over to me. I had no idea who she was, and she whispered in my ear. She said, "God's not done with you yet."
Wow.
And I just looked at her, and she repeated it, and I went, I'd never seen her before.
Yeah.
She was standing around. I mean, I didn't know who she was. Whether she was a background I didn't know who she was. And I thought, well, you know what? Maybe she's right.
Yeah.
So I'm at the stage of my life where I'm just going to sort of go where God wants me to go.
Yeah. This is such a timely film. I mean, there couldn't be a better moment for it than the one we're living in. September 12th, I think, is when it releases. What's next for you? This comes out and you'll parry off all of the people who will attack you for having an opinion that doesn't fall in line. But what are you working on next?
I just did David asked me to do a couple of days on another film. I don't know. I think they're changing the title. I'm not sure, but I did that in Miami. And I honestly, Jeremy, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just on the wind. I'm on a wing and a prayer, and wherever I need to go, I'll go. I'm here for I'm here for my child.
Yeah.
To give her what she needs to go where she wants to go, and hopefully protect the country for her by doing films like this and helping in any small way that I can.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for using your voice and your platform to really bring attention to something that is important. I think, when I think about you involved in something like this is just me, but it should be encouraging in the sense that it puts courage into people who don't want to use their voices, right? Like the rest of us. Well, I don't want to say that, or I don't want to get political or whatever. When people like you stand up, it really goes so far to encourage the rest of us to stand up and use our voice for those things that are right, because you're absolutely right. We're going to lose our country if we don't. So
I certainly hope we don't. And I thank you for those kind words. And we'll see what happens. September 12th, God's Not Dead, In God We Trust, and get to the theaters and make it a big hit. And then it'll affect change.
That's awesome. Scott Baio, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Very grateful for that conversation. And man, what an honor to be able to interview Scott and all of the things that he's been involved in over his career. And you know how it is when you see people in movies and television shows, you connect to them. Always cool to be able to have conversations like this one, but then to talk about something so important, standing up for what we believe in as Americans, as people of faith, and having the opportunity to really represent what's important to us. Grateful for this film. Make sure that you and your family go and watch it. We need to support films like this. This is an opportunity for us. God's Not Dead, In God We Trust. And that releases September 12th, and it's coming up. So make sure that you are a part of that. Again, thank you so much for watching and enjoying this conversation and being a part of what we're doing here at March or Die. If you are not yet subscribed to the show, go ahead and subscribe. Very, very important. Go to the website, marchordie.com. Check that out. Merchandise there, archived episodes, all of the stuff you'd want to know about March or Die. My connections are there. So many other things are there as well. So please go and check that out. And then take some time, go over to Life Audio, lifeaudio.com. lifeaudio.com. You'll find other great podcasts like this one. This one is hosted there. Other great hosts and conversations that you'll find there as well. So thank you for joining this conversation. And I will remind you today, as I do every single episode, when the bullets are flying your direction, when the world around you seems to be falling apart, you only have two choices. Thankfully, they're choices. You get to control what it is you do next, but you can either stay where you are and die. You can make that decision, or you can put one foot in front of the other and march. And the question is always this: what are you going to do?